We are set.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, everybody. We're so happy to have you today. This is the Global LGBT Inclusion, launching ERG around the world. We have four of us talking to you this afternoon. So please, Mike, if you want to start introducing yourself.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Beto, in this wonderful session. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to the session. My name is Mickey Gamboa. I'm based here in the Philippines. My day job is I'm a learning community manager in one of the organizations or learning organization in SAP. And my gay job is I'm the global lead for Pride at SAP.
Should I continue, Beto?
Please.
So, hello everyone, I'm Miguel Castro. I'm located out of Madrid in Spain. My gay job became eventually my day job. So I'm global lead for diverse ecosystem as part of the Global Diversity Inclusion Office in SAP. An additional role that I have, I'm the chairman of the board of REDI, the Spanish LGBT business inclusion NGO.
Thank you, Miguel. Tania.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Tania Blanco. I'm Senior Product Manager for the PU systems in Latin America. And also, I'm honored to be a GLAD Latin America leader. That is our ERG for LGBT and allies.
Great, Tania. My name is Alberto Pino. In my day job, I'm the global strategy leader for consumer solutions. That is the Dow business that is very focused on the silicons that you use maybe in a shampoo or even your car or your cell phone. And my gay job, I have the pleasure to work with the NGOs globally. One of them, and the most important, is obviously Out and Equal. So we are super excited to be here this afternoon. So let me pass you very fast about what we're going to cover during this session. We're going to talk, first of all, a little bit about Dow and SAP. It's something very short. It's not a commercial, I promise you. We're going to link it to diversity and inclusion. Then we're going to talk about why the United Nations say that this is something that is crucial and is something that it has to be applied and work in all our workplaces. Then we're going to talk about the challenges that all of us are maybe could experience launching our ERGs in our cities and overseas the States. Then we're going to talk about how to connect with the business environment. Talking the experience of Europe and Latin America. Then we're going to have the connection with community. We have nice examples from Asia Pacific and Latin America as well. Then some examples about initiatives that were local and then were kind of global in our companies. And finally, we're going to talk about how all of this is connected with the business case. And then we're going to open from Q&A. So if you want, we can start. First, let me talk to you a little bit about Dow. Maybe it's a company that it's the first time that you listen to that name, maybe it's not. We're a business-to-business company. We are the science material company. We're the second biggest chemical company in the world. We develop chemistries for everything, since packaging to cosmetics, as I said, to home care products, to mattresses, to shoes, everything that you maybe can use. Possibly it has a Dow product on it. We have a presence around the globe, more than 30 countries with manufacturing sites and commercial presence in more than 160. What is to me, very nice about Dow is that we want to be driven by science, but the most important, the sustainability is one of our core values. So how we can impact and create a better world for all of us with the respect for our people and the most important, protecting our planet. And we do that across protecting the Amazon forest and doing so many initiatives globally that I'm really excited about that. But talking about diversity and inclusion, we have our ERG, as Tania said a couple of minutes ago. Our ERG is called GLAD. And well, it was founded in 2000. We have presence now in all the continents. We have more than 3,000 employees globally as active participants of this ERG. And what we want is for everybody to feel included, safe, and open into their workplaces, no matter your sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. So it's super amazing is that this year we're becoming 20. We're almost legal to drink in every country. So this is our 20th anniversary, and we're celebrating that during this year. So it's super special to be sharing with you this afternoon. So Miguel, why don't you talk us a little bit more about SAP?
Thank you, Beto, with pleasure. So in the case of SAP, I just would like to start with a realization that I think that in this year of 2020, it's very clear to all of us that like change is the only thing that is constant. Everything is changing really fast. In 2020, I don't think that anybody would disagree with the fact that this year has brought so much change to all of us. but on a regular basis, even without considering the 2020 situation. New business models are continuing appearing. The data that companies need to manage in order to find out how they're running the business keeps increasing exponentially. The customers' demand continue increasing, and the diverse workforces of the companies are demanding more and more purpose when it comes to the companies that they work for. So if we go to the next slide, please, what we're realizing is that the companies who are being intelligent enterprises, they help the world run better. They help the world run better because in the experience economy, they get to understand the experiences and serve the best their employees, their customers. They understand how the product is being perceived. At the other side, they are the best when it comes to running the operations. Operations in terms of customer engagement, operations in HR processes, operations the supply chain. And with the intelligence and looking into the data, they are able to have great financial results, but also have a positive impact when it comes to sustainability and a positive impact when it comes to society. So this is the way that companies, best run businesses, the intelligent enterprises, made the world run better. If we quickly look at some figures from SAP in the next slide, please, Beto, where we see that we have 440,000 employees and customers in 180 countries. Just to give some perspective on the figures, 92% of those of the Forbes Global 2000 companies, 92% of those would be our customers. Same as our customers, 80% of those would be small and medium enterprises. My favorite figure is that 77% of the world's transaction revenue touches SAP software, goes to. If we go to the next slide, where we see some figures that will women in management positions, the women that we have in management positions, that is now close to 27%. When it comes to our workforce, we have 34% women in the workforce. We also report when it comes to the volunteering areas that we have in our 100,000 employees that you see here are tons of those. We train youth in STEM. Not only because of our social commitments, but also at the same time, because 100% of our data centers and facilities run with renewable energy, and we have the target to have zero CO2 emissions net by 2025. The last slide to introduce the company is when we talk about, well, the leadership that we have in the area of sustainability. When it comes to LGBT inclusion, we are not only recognized by the Human Rights Campaign, the Corporate Equality Index in the US, that many of you would know, but also in other places like Mexico and Chile. Also in Germany, which is the country in which we're headquartered, the DAX 30 LGBT index ranks us as the #1 company of the German companies, with 100% of the points achieved in that index. We are also in Germany recognized as LGBT plus diversity champion in the year 2020. And from more global recognitions like the one from Stonewall or Workplace Pride, we are in the top ranking for both organizations when they assess the type of engagement that we would have for LGBT plus inclusion. So if we go to the next slide, we actually start getting into the topic that is the most interesting for you today, which is about how is it that we help localize global initiatives from the company relating to LGBTQ plus inclusion. And for this, as Beto was mentioning at the beginning, when we were talking about the UN standards of conduct, that's right now what we see as one of the best tools to understand the possibilities about what a company can do in order to address the inclusion of our community. And as you see here, they were launched, these standards of conduct, they were launched at the end of 2017. Right now, there's more than 400 companies supporting these standards of conduct, 2 of them being the speakers today, which are Dow Chemical and SAP. I would be curious, I get to talk a little bit of the different pillars, of the different standards. I would be curious to hear if you know if your company supports the UN Global LGBTI Standards of Conduct, but no, if you could just put brief messages on that on the chat, it would be great to see the level of awareness that we would have about this, within the participants, within the community today. First one is Paul saying, yes, Awadas, that's really cool. Starting to talk then about what it means. I like them a lot because you go little by little from the point about what are the basics that a company should be doing to the part that is having the broad aspect, which goes even beyond your customers in the marketplace to how you behave overall in the society. So if we start from the very beginning, normally the first point is wherever you have operations, you need to make sure that you as a company are respecting human rights, considering the LGBTI workers, customers, the community members, etc., etc. So this is the basics that the UN is asking every company to comply with. The second step is to say, look at your processes within the company, especially everything that could relate to your employees and the LGBT plus employees, and ensure that you eliminate discrimination on those. The third step is the one that says, go beyond protection, go beyond eliminating discrimination, and make sure that you engage with your LGBTI staff and that you support them at work. So it's more active work when it comes to the engagement. Then the UN says, don't stop within your company. Start looking about your behavior when it comes to the marketplace and see how is it that you're actually engaging on eradicating discrimination that might be in the way that you're considering your customers, your suppliers, and your business partners. And the last point, which is the favorite one from the UN, it's wherever you operate, stand up for human rights. Don't only respect human rights, don't only protect your employees, engage with your employees, and ensure that you eliminate discrimination from the marketplaces. Wherever you have a presence, stand up for human rights and take an active position when it comes to engaging on the defense of the LGBT plus community. If we move to the next slide, we see that from a global point of view, this is when it starts showing that this could be an issue, because here's the map from ILGA that, as you know, they release one map every year. This is the version from December 2019. And in here we see an overview of the sexual orientation related legislation around the world. We go from countries that protect us as the LGBT community, even on a constitutional level, you know, this is the dark blue, to countries in which there would be death penalty for people like us. So the variety, normally when I talk about the diversity and inclusion from a global perspective, there's topics that could be of global relevance, like the inclusion of our community. When it comes to the how do you make it happen, the variety of the legislation, not only the social acceptance is huge, but having said this, having spoken about like how huge could be the differences between how we are perceived in the world in the different societies and how legislation actually goes from protecting us to prosecuting us, the first two steps of the UN standards of conduct, that's something that every company should be doing regardless of where they operate. So if we go to the next slide, please, Beto. Let me elaborate a little bit on those two. Okay, so the first one, when it comes to respect human rights, how do you ensure that one as a company? Well, the first step that you need to do in this area is make sure that all your global corporate policies include protection against discrimination and harassment for personal factors like sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. What we do within SAP is, for example, we include that explicitly in our SAP Global Human Rights Commitment Statement. We include it explicitly as well in our SAP Global and Discrimination Policy. So all employees around the world working in our company are not allowed to discriminate anybody based on personal factors that could be gender, age, nationality, race, ethnicity, etc., but also explicitly set sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. You know that this is a very important component because of the map that we were showing in the previous slide. There's places in which we don't have legal protection, we would actually have persecution. But within the boundaries of your company, you need to ensure that all your policies are covering this and saying what happens within our company is like we're never going to be allowing any sort of discrimination to our employees, regardless if they're members of the LGBT community or not. So when it comes to localizing activities that happen in the company globally, that's the first step that you can actually take. Looking what are the type of global policies that we have within our company, and are the LGBT people in our country protected by the policies that we might have in place. The next step is when it comes to looking at how do you eliminate discrimination. And that's a very interesting one. And that's the most HR related type of area, because it's about looking at the whole employee life cycle from the moment of you attracting talent, how you hire people, you manage, develop, compensate, etc. And you start looking about what type of gaps could I have in which discrimination, or at least the effect of bias, could be taking place against LGBT people. So in here, recommendations that we have for you to consider when it comes to engaging with HR, it could be like having LGBT plus inclusion content as part of your D&I learning programs, ensuring coverage of LGBT people when it comes to company benefits. Like for example, when it comes to, are you covering in healthcare the assigning of same-sex partners, even if marriage equality is not recognized in the country? How are you covering the needs for the transgender community the moment they're doing the transition, etc.? You can also consider engagement in LGBT plus recruitment fairs. You know, when you're participating as a company in recruitment activities, do you go to these recruitment fairs to position yourself actively in front of the LGBTQ plus community? And then you can consider implementations of solutions like LGBT plus self-ID, or the consideration of how is it that you are addressing our community in employee engagement surveys. Okay, so these two areas, so the first one is when it comes to corporate policies, the second one is for HR, is not necessarily something that the ERGs are going to be driving locally, but it's something that you can ensure that these departments responsible for these areas are actually taking care of this, and that they see you as a trustful partner for you to cooperate with. That's it so far. Mm-hmm. And you're on mute, Beto, I cannot hear you yet. Mm-hmm.
Super. Thank you. So just like Miguel was saying, okay, with the first two, we cover how we protect, how we guarantee that our employees feel safe, they are not discriminated. But the question here is how you can move to protect as to engage, as Miguel said at the beginning. And the solution, as you know, and a lot of the people in this call have been working on that, is the ERGs, or BRGs, as you prefer to call it. So the question here is, okay, I belong to these big, generally American or European companies. They have their policies for BRGs, but what happens when you are located in Asia? What happens when you're located in Latin America? How is that transition to launch your ERG locally? And precisely what we want to cover with this part is part of the challenges that in the past we experienced. And to Tania and myself, it's a pleasure to share this because I had opportunity to launch Dow ERG in Mexico. Tania did the same in Colombia. So we put together a kind of concepts that we wanted to share with you. But first of all, and I know that people in the call, because I was checking our guest and a lot of people are friends, I want to know by the chat, if you can share when you started your ERG in your site, in your city, in your office, which were the first challenges that you experienced? Does anybody wants to share by the chat part of the initial challenges you experienced when you were launching your ERG? Budget, David. Oh my God, that's huge. We're going to talk about that. Participation, budget, getting the info of the out. Yeah, that's cool. Membership, volunteers, communication, participation is ongoing. Leadership support, engagement. Wow, we have a very participative group. I love that. Pandemic, that's very realistic, Jessica. Totally agree with you. So mostly USA, totally. Thank you so much. And I promise you, we're going to cover a lot of this during the next 10 minutes. So we put three of the biggest challenges that we had. And I'm going to talk Latin America. Later, we're going to have APAC vision by Mikey. But first of all, and as Rafa said into the chat box, leadership was one of the biggest challenges, because one of the first things that we learned is that no matter you had one team of very courageous people to launch the ERG, if you don't have the leadership the leadership support, it's going to be very hard. The second is the participation and engagement. A lot of people of you said, how can I motivate and migrate from LGBT community and straight woman to have also straight men joining? Or how can you make somebody that I know it's LGBT to be out in the workplace? Those kind of things were kind of challenging, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we try to solve these challenges. And last but not least, the cultural differences. I have to say, well, I'm Mexican. My Sofia Vergara accent might be fool you, but I'm from Mexico, I promise. So what I learned is that, for example, I come from Mexico. That is a very Catholic country. I'm Catholic as well, so I don't have anything against that. I'm pro that. But what happens is that when you go, for example, in our case as Dow, to a manufacturing site from a customer that has a virgin in the welcome area for the plant, is kind of, okay, how can I say to these people that I'm gay? Because if they are Catholic, maybe they are going to be against my sexual orientation. So what we work and what we're going to show in the next slide is how we change the way we communicate these kind of things, and even with our customers. So let us go, and we wanted to elaborate this flower of 6 things that we think are basic to challenge, to solve the challenges. We're going to talk about how to identify and work with the local focal points. Second, the education. Then how you engage the employees' visibility. So being out is a pro and no a con. Then the priorities by your site. Then the communication. And also very important, as Miguel said into the United Nations points, one of the pillars of this is what happens when you are good inside, but you start to transfer these good practices, policies, and DNA of inclusion outside of your office, and you start engaging with the community. So let's go with the first one, and it's education, and I think it's fundamental. I have to say that that is not only one way to do education good in your site. We found that we have to find a lot of options for all of our employees. So here we wanted to showcase three different kind of types of communication that we have been using into the past almost 8 years in Latin America. The first is something very basic, is the trainings. First, we started with the unconscious bias training. This is something that GLAD started to do at Dow maybe 6 or 7 years ago in Latin America. Then it evolved to even an Ally certification program that Tania worked with the team in Latin America, changing the way the Allied got engaged. Something very remarkable at Dow is that more than 84% of our people that are in our ERG are allies, are not LGBT. So I have to say that our sites have been very successful to engage with the ally, but it's because we make them feel what they are. They are relevant, they are important, they are crucial to our cause. And also something very important is demystifying the stereotypes of workshop. This workshop is all about, we're a manufacturing company, we're a chemical company. People think that all of us have to be a white, straight men. And you can see by the picture that is totally the opposite. We're a very diverse company, especially in Latin America. So this kind of workshops is very important to understand people that putting shapes and stereotypes only makes things worse. You have to be very open to each one of your team's identity, expression, etc. Other thing that was very important is the empathy. At Dow, we are in this journey to be even more, having more acceptance to trans population. You're going to see that we have tons of programs going. Actually, I'm going to talk about our trans apprentice program in Brazil and Argentina at the end of our presentation to share part of our good practices. But it was very important to break down the taboos. So we started recording our people, recording testimonials, and for example, into the lunchtime in the manufacturing sites, we played part of this testimonial, so everybody was like, okay, this is my colleague and has this sexual orientation, or this is my colleague and is an ally of the cause. So it's all about empathy. And finally, I really think that in my case, and because I love movies, one of the things that really worked for us into the manufacturing sites was not only do like a plain workshop. How do you engage, for example, with a movie? So we started playing movies into the lunch breaks of our employees, making a mini discussion about parts of the movie. For example, we used Mambo Italiano as one of our first movies. I don't know why, but people love it. I'm a totally fan, but it was very good because it was very accordant to the Latin America conservative mindset. And finally, even experiences like workshops, but very drive to action. For example, the coming out stars. For example, CV that is in the call, you know that we use this in all our sites. There is a story when you use a star that you have and represents who are you and how you're advancing. So you can see that in short time, we achieved to having a lot of our people already trained. In Latin America, in 2019, we have more than 70 sessions and more than 40% of our total employees with this kind of trainings. Also, one of the things that you put into the chat is how can I make anybody to be out of the closet and to be an advocate for my group? And what we started to do is doing this. As you can see, and sorry, it's in Portuguese and Spanish, but it's from Latin America. We show that it's good to be queer, it's good to be lesbian, it's good to be bisexual, and not only good, we celebrate it. So we started, for example, for the Lesbian National Visibility Day, we made these profiles of all these super powerful women that are out of the closet. We told their stories. So as you can see, it's celebrating diversity. Also celebrating our allies, also celebrating our LGBTs in general. So as you can see, we make our people to feel not only happy, but also willing to share their stories. So at this point, we're sharing more than 34 allies stories into the past Pride, for example. Sorry that I'm running, but we're kind of short of time, and we're going to share this material with you at the end. So, and we're going to be connected by LinkedIn or whatever you prefer. So we can cover that later if you have any specific question, or in our Q&A at the end of the session. Then let's talk about the priorities. And with this, we didn't want to go very specific, but what we learned is that the best thing that you can do is do like a thermometer for your site. Apply service, understand better which are the needs of your people. Because maybe what your team is requesting is education, or maybe it's more community engagement. So doing this service in Dow, we call it Voice, that is our climate survey. We had globally included some question that you can ask for your specific forum for allies and LGBTs, how they are feeling in terms of the LGBT acceptance in our workplace. So in base of the answers, we do a lot of the strategic planning of our sites because we understand what is the crucial part for them. They need more empathy workshops. They need more, for example, leadership engagement. All of this information, you can have it from a very nice survey. Other is the communication, and here it starts the challenging parts because we come from global companies. Dow is a global company, SAP is a global company. How you can connect with your global communication strategy to your local, that you have a specific agenda, as we have been discussing in the past minutes. What we guarantee is, first of all, understand better where is your persona or the people that you are communicating, where they are getting their news. Is from the cafeteria board, is from an email, if you're on a manufacturing site, it's in the local area. Other thing very important is the language. In our case, when we started with GLAD in Latin America, we trying to put everything from the GLAD USA chapter, and huge mistake. People want to have their own language, Portuguese, Spanish, even we're learning, and we have Rafa Jornet into the call from our Argentina team, to even do the Argentinian Spanish, because in that place, in that way, everybody feels included. Remember, it's all about inclusion. Then the timing. It's very important to understand the timing of your site. Christmas is never a good time to make an event, January neither, but February suddenly is a good time for everybody to make an event. Try to understand with the HR department, just like Miguel was saying, when are the best moments to have everybody attending to your events? In our case, we declared that June is our month. So please, June, we're going to have a pack of GLAD events across Latin America. So in that way, we can have a better alignment with other ERGs, and we don't choke in our agendas, and we don't crash in our agendas. And finally, how you can make something that is relatable. For example, in my case, nowadays you can see that I have this golden bomber, and I'm 100% queer. But I have to say that at the beginning, I could not go to a normal webinar in our initial stage and talk to people about intersectionality in a deep way, how it was created, what about the different layers. We started with something very basic, guys. We started with inclusion vocabulary. And we have to advance with our people, and we have to take there by the hand and advance in that way. You cannot start running. You have starting like, okay, first let's realize where are we standing, and then we can make it a plan with our communication. But remember, don't try to run first. Then about the community, and I think this is a great link with what Mike is going to cover into the next point. What we try to do is to connect a lot with our local needs. We develop so many things. We're a chemical company, so we work a lot with children to the STEM methodology, you know, the science, technology, engineering, and math, because we want more children to be geeks as well, because we love science. So we go to the schools and we talk about science, but then we added for example, the superhero part, as you can see. So we have these superheroes that are each one of them have an own intersectionality. We have one superhero in a wheelchair. We have one superhero that is no binary. We have one superhero that is gay. We have one that is a super powerful lesbian. So we have all these stories. When we go to the school and we talk about science and superheroes, we try to merge the intersectionality in a way that is super children approved and oriented. We had a lot of support of the communication area of Latin America to make this happen, but it made our employees to feel super comfortable to go into the schools. And for example, this is Torpedoes in Amazonia. We have this program of kids putting together robots, etc. So we guarantee that we have this community engagement. Sorry that I'm running, but it's time to talk about the passionate Asia examples. So Michael, do you want to share with us your story?
Sure, yeah. For this particular slide, I want to talk about my experience regarding the evolution and the launch of the chapters in APJ, specifically the countries based out of Southeast Asia and then Greater China as well. So I have the unique opportunity and experience of starting it off in APJ in the Philippines and eventually launching several chapters along the way. So with my particular experience of the evolution of ERGs, we did have a lot of challenge with pushbacks, with acceptance, with understanding of this particular topic. If I may say so, in 2015, the topic is not comfortable to talk about in the office settings, because nobody has spoken about it before. So in 2015, we started talking about it in the Philippines and in New Zealand. Back then, the conversation started about what's LGBT, what's the color, what's the importance of the rainbow flag. So what we did specifically with APJ is not to start off with say, hey, welcome to Pride at SAP, because nobody, from knowing the audience where I'm at, nobody would understand that. So what connected us was, funnily enough, food and pizza, to be exact. So I invited people to what we call road shows to talk more about Pride at SAP, what LGBT at work means, what Pride is, and what the significance of the color. So we started with those road shows to make them comfortable seeing the flags and the colors in the first place. So that's where the springboard and the conversation started in the Philippines. Eventually, the conversation, since we did successfully launch the chapter in the Philippines and Australia and New Zealand, the conversation evolved to say, what if we do that in a regional level? What would that look like? So we started talking about where else can we launch that? And given the geographic uniqueness of APJ, to be exact, you have different cultures, different background, different religions and geography. You are I would say, at a disadvantage of trying to put together things to unify it. But what happened was I had to do my research and due diligence to make sure I understand what's happening locally. So I became an avid fan of reading local news about LGBT topics at those countries. One specific country started this conversation was India and Singapore. Although it says they launched in 2016 and 17, we started that conversation way earlier than it was launched, because it took a while for people to actually have acceptance and deeper understanding for the topic. One significant event that made it possible is also the situation in the societies where these chapters are located, or this Pride at SAP chapters were located. In India, specifically in 2018, things changed because the Supreme Court in India overturned Section 377, which made it more easier for people to talk about or accepting the topic, even though it was legally accepted in India. Prior to that conversation, it was uncomfortable for people to talk about it. Even so now, it's still a conversation that's continuing in that area. However, it's more freely discussed within the office, within the topic. So you'd see a lot of boom on the topic of LGBT at work for India and in Singapore as well. Interestingly enough, in Japan as well, somebody from that particular country or chapter leads there reach out to me and say, hey, I'm seeing a lot of topics about LGBT at work and I'm interested to launch a chapter in this particular country. And that's how it started as well, because back then in 2015, when you reach out to Japan, it might not be an open topic, because I did that. I reached out to employees in Japan who might be interested to do this, and they say, right now, that might not be our priority topic. And then it started changing along the lines of, maybe we start talking about this and incorporating it into our topic. So what I'm trying to say is, from the evolution of the chapters in APJ, this also involves a lot of being sensitive to the local situation of what's happening in the society, reflecting of what already exists in the organization, which Miguel mentioned about our clear anti-discrimination policies, our support for UN, for business policies that's already in place. However, the question is your office, that particular office, ready? Or is the society where your office is ready for that conversation? However, you continue the marketing, you continue the conversation, you continue the awareness for it. And then the good news is, for this year, we already have a planned launch this October, I think, for Greater China. So that's something that has been seen as, I would say, an evolution of where APJ is going in terms of LGBT at work. And if we can move to the next slide, I can show you the wonderful picture of our chapter leads in APJ. So these are the wonderful folks that lead our chapters in APJ from ANZ up until Singapore. All right. I'll pass it on to Miguel to talk more about the ready topic.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Miki. And just to say, as we were sharing at the beginning, the slide in terms of the legal situation around the world, what you see in Asia, there's some countries in which there's still persecution of the LGBT community from a legislation point of view. But what you would have as well, it's lots of countries in which the topic is not being addressed. You know, there's neither prosecution, there's neither protection. So that gives us a sign about the situation of the local society when it comes to looking at the topic of LGBT inclusion. But thanks to Miki's work when he was leading the Asia Pacific initiatives, you know, little by little, people start seeing, well, if this is happening in the Philippines, why isn't it happening in Japan? You know, culture-wise, there could be differences, but it's not saying like, well, we see it happening in the US or in Germany. You know, they are Asian countries by the end of the day. So the work in Asia Pacific has been amazing. Now, when it comes to the next point that I wanted to highlight, it's the fourth pillar, the fourth standard of the UN, which is the one in which they recommend that companies take an active business engagement, and they look about how is it that you ensure an inclusion of the LGBT people when it comes to your customer base, your suppliers, etc., etc. And for this, we're going to be highlighting the example from Ready, which is the NGO in Spain that focuses on LGBTI inclusion in the business environment, which I have the honor to be the chairman of the board for. That's why we chose it as an example as well. So right now, this organization would have almost 100 member companies. Out of them, more than 50 would be big corporations. And you see here the whole list of those, or the bigger companies that are members of. As you see, you would have like usual suspects like Dow, SAP, I saw Sodexo mentioned in the chat before, and so on. Many of our companies are already members. Oh, that one, yes, Sodexo comes up again. Really cool. So we see many of the companies already in the founding stage of being members. Other companies, you might not recognize them because they might be more local Spanish brands, like, for example, El Corte Inglés or Uribe Menendez. Those are companies that would have many presence in Spain or Parol, Spain and Portugal. So many of you might not be able to recognize them. But this is also the platform when it comes to looking at these NGOs that would be the ones facilitating the conversation with you and the activities on a local level. The three priorities that Ready has when it comes to the objectives of the organization is, first of all, the first one is support your member companies in the road to inclusion of the LGBTI community for their employees in Spain. So if your company could have a presence in Spain, then it's something good to consider, like, if I want to address LGBTI inclusion there, how do I make it local and specific? That's a good way of looking at it. If you are a company that is headquartered in Spain but has got global outreach, like, for example, BBVA, Santander, Telefonica, there's also the type of engagement that they start with, but then we also help them connect with other organizations, like, for example, Pride Connection Latin America, that is going to be talking about. Okay, so in this sense, normally this is a very good point to say, like, get started to localize the activities by engaging with the other companies that understand how the marketplace is through the local NGOs. The second objective that Ready has is to say, go beyond the member companies and make sure that the whole corporate world in Spain understands what LGBT inclusion is about. And for that one, we already have engagements with organizations like the Association of HR Directors in Spain, the federation that represents all the corporations operating in Spain when it comes to dealing with the public sector and so on in terms of legislation. So we are the sounding board members, and we have an agreement with them to be their go-to party when it comes to understanding LGBT inclusion. And then the third point is the one that focuses on, through employment, how is it that you reach more acceptance and inclusion of the LGBT community in the broader society, which is something that I don't think we should underestimate when it comes to the impact that you're having in terms of employees of companies are also citizens in the societies in which they live. So for that one, we have a strong cooperation with the public sector. I remember last year for Pride season, it's when Beto came to an event that we had in the nowadays Ministry of Diversity and Equality that we would have in Spain. It was hosted in that area because the cooperation with the public sector is something really relevant. You are going to be able to do this type of activities the moment you join forces with organizations as we are ready for Spain. But if you're considering other European countries, there's many other organizations that you can consider. You know, for example, Stonewall in the UK, Workplace Pride in the Netherlands, Proud at Work in Germany. These are very similar NGOs, and through them is how you can get into the local societies. Very luckily, when it comes to Out and Equal has been supporting all these organizations for many years. For example, we had the former CEO and founder of Out and Equal Salisbury, joining us at one of the first events already. She had a very good coaching session with all of us to help us evolve as an NGO and how to become more professional. And then in all the summits, we also have meetings in terms of engaging with corporate leaders and leaders of NGOs in the Out and Equal Summit, wherever it takes place. So it's not that this is separated from Out and Equal, it's considered how you're going to be able to localize these initiatives, and Out and Equal having a very much of an umbrella role when it comes to cooperating with all of us. I'm stopping here because I see there's questions about Ready in Latin America, and Beto and Tanya have got the answer for that. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Super aligned, Miguel. Just like you were asking, we have our own store in Latin America, and it's called Pride Connection. So I'm always excited to talk about Pride Connection because it all started in a very, I have to say, peculiar way. It was approximately 2010, 2012 that a lot of companies as Accenture, SAP, of course, Dow, JP Morgan, they started in Mexico and in other countries of Latin America to launch their own ERGs. As I mentioned it, Tania and myself, we had opportunities to launch our chapters in Mexico and Colombia, but we were kind of isolated by company. I mean, I work with Tania, I work with me, but what happened with the connection with other companies? We didn't have it. But then in 2014, the Mexico City government invited a lot of the that were working this individually to talk about and share the good practices. It was this event that I'm putting the picture here, like sharing good practices. So we realized that why, guys, we're making everything separated. I mean, why we don't have a connection? And then Pride Connection was created. So what is the thing that we shared? First of all, at that moment, because that changed later, we were all global companies. We had our same values on diversity. We wanted to have a very diverse and inclusive DNA. We have the support from our high management. We have an ERG already working. We have a very nice ally support system. We didn't have necessarily money. That's why I was laughing when you said that money and budget was kind of the first challenges. At the beginning, we were very poor, very poor. I can tell you that we had to share even muffins to have some money for our first t-shirts. I'm not shy to say that because everything that you love, you work it hard, and then we had all the approvals of Dow, but at the beginning we have to show that we really, really wanted to make this happen. And all the companies were the same. At first we have to sweat it. So we started having these monthly meetings, and then we realized, folks, this is becoming huge and huge and huge. We started 10 companies, then we have 20, then we have 30. And when it was the first LGBT parade in Mexico City, for the first time, we worked together in 2015. And you're going to say, okay, Mexico City is huge. How many people do you have? The first year, we only had 300 from 12 companies. But it was the first time ever that in Mexico City, we had a block of corporates going, and not only restaurants or bars or disco places. So it was very nice. And from that year until now, we having thousands of people joining to the parade. We were in all the news, we were all in the radios. Everybody was like, wow, all the companies are going really for this case. But it's not all about the parade. It was also to create content. And inspired by Out and Equal, we had our first summit a few years ago. And in 2016, we had a very personal, but quite of not big event. As you can see in the screen, in the top of the screen, maybe we had 400 people in our first event, our first summit. It was kind of small in the World Trade Center, Mexico City. 1 year after that, we more than doubled the attendance for that. And in 2018, for example, we got at more than 2,000. We were super excited because we got the participation of Salisbury on Out and Equal folks, as Dina, for example, as well, on her HRC days. We had all this great collaboration from people that really believe in the project since the beginning, and thanks to people as Dina, as CV, of course, and Celis in her moment, we started to having more and more participation, because if we got Dina or CV or Celis, everybody from the global company said, okay, this is going for serious. So they started to invest into the event. And as you can see at the end, we had this very nice, with obviously not as pretty as Out and Equal, that they are the kings of production, but we had our own Latino in Mexico event. And it was very good, because what we try to do, as Miguel said, Pride Connection and Ready are not trying to replace Out and Equal. we try to make an echo in our cities for smaller companies that maybe cannot attend to Out and Equal, to have the same flavor of inclusion and to build that same flavor of we all belong, as always Erin said. Okay, so Tania, why don't you call us what happened after the Mexico creation, because you were part of the next chapter, right?
Yes, Beto, thank you. Actually, it happened a lot, and Pride Connection has gotten a beautiful momentum across Latin America. This is a personal story for me because I was part of the foundation of Pride Connection Colombia in 2017. They were already in Chile and Brazil. But the beautiful thing about Pride Connection is that you have all the good stuff and the bad stuff that was the learnings and the crushes that some other region may have. You have the learning, so you don't have to do it again. It was through 5-6 companies in Colombia, we got together and we said, okay, we feel comfortable enough to go outside our 4 walls and talk about inclusion and diversity and LGBT inclusion in the workplace. So what can we do? And we just grabbed the model that they had in Mexico, and I connected to Beto, and we said, we are very similar companies from what you have in Mexico. We want to do something similar in Colombia. We know that we are at a stage of beginning, but what learnings can you share? And we have the branded name, the recognition, and the learnings that they have across the 2 or 3 years that they were already having. We now in Colombia have more than 30 companies in Pride Connection, and we're targeted to local companies that might not have a big trajectory on diversity and inclusion. This is where we want to go. We want to show them our learnings, the importance of diversity and inclusion, and why not eventually start speaking to government as a block of corporate companies that have powerful messages to give to society. So for me, it was a beautiful experience in Colombia. I get to be now that I'm in Mexico, in Pride Connection Mexico. So it has been a lot of great learnings. In Colombia, we're on the 3rd wave of the summit, also targeted to local companies. So these best practices that you get from different regions, you get to share them and be flexible from what your region really needs. Like I said, in Colombia, we really targeted local companies that had not this trajectory on diversity and inclusion. So more of them are getting along in Pride Connection Colombia, and we're very, very proud of it. So this is for Pride Connection in Latin America. I know there have been some initial conversations to get this specific Pride Connection model to Asia. We do hope that sometime they have it there, but for now I'm going to pass it along to Miki that will give us some specific initiatives from Asia.
Sure, thank you for that, Anya. So for this particular slide, I want to talk about the existing partnership or past partnerships that we've had based in Asia Pacific with NGOs and other organizations dedicated to the LGBT topic or inclusion topic. I want to speak to my experience in the Philippines with our partnerships in the past with different organizations based on the common objective or the common goal of making sure that LGBT at work, LGBT in society is, the awareness of it is raised to a different level. The first logo that you can see here in the Philippines is the Metro Manila Pride organization. They are the organizing body that does the Pride marches in Metro Manila. So what happened was when we first participated in 2017, it was our first experience on doing that in Asia, to be exact. And initially we only had, I would say, 100 participants in our first year. And that march would have gathered about 20 to 25,000 people. We did the following year and doubled our participation to over 200 to 220, I think 210 people. And the parade was attended by about 75,000 people. So the change in acceptance and awareness in that time space was amazing. The growth was so exponential. it may be contributed to the awareness that is being built at the corporate level with these partnerships that we have done, and also with other corporates that are doing the same thing. So it's not only us in the Philippines and Asia Pacific that's doing that, but it's a common topic that's currently being discussed and currently being open to different countries' location. As you can see with other locations as well, they have existing partnership with different organizations that may be relevant to the topic that they're working on. Specifically, maybe for us in the Philippines, the biggest topic that we tackle is still inclusion awareness, and one of which is also HIV in society. So the prevalence of that topic was very and very, it was a topic that was discussed in 2016, 2017. That's why we've had that partnership similar to ANZ, who has a very strong partnership with Wear It Purple, the organization, and also Fruits and Suits. It is similar to the partnerships that we've had in Japan as well, and then in Greater China. But so far, based from our experience, it's always about evaluating your current situation in the society and what partnerships can you build out of that. Is it something that's aligned with your own objective as an ENG or ERG? Is it something that you want to take further beyond just sponsoring, or you want to partner and make sure that you not only give money, but also impact the direct stakeholders of these NGOs, because we've done that with these partnerships. All right, I think it would be Tanya next, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, thank you, Miki. And for me, I'll talk to you specifically about redefining the concept of allies. I identify myself as a huge ally and advocate from the LGBTQ plus community, but I understood that for my local chapter in Colombia, I needed corporate allies. And I'm talking about specifically of the NGOs and associations that are outside your company that will help you just direct important initiatives to really cause an impact on your community. Once that you are comfortable enough with your cultural change and with your diversity and inclusion inside your company, this is what we expect to do more. Just go outside and spread the message. This specific allies, as we call them, are Pride Connection allies that we found along the way of creating and growing. They were very, very helpful because they provide specific information. They are very academic. They have figures that you will need, that will be helpful inside your organization. And of course, to target outside your company initiatives to help your community. If we go to the next one, Beto. I'm going to talk to you specifically about some cases in Colombia. Fundación Sergio Urrego is one of our biggest allies. We're very proud to work with them. They are specifically focused on anti-bullying, on diverse family, on storytelling, since Sergio was a young man who committed suicide because of bullying in his school. So his mother created this fundación, this NGO, and works really close with specific schools in Colombia. And we have been helping them to spread the message inside our company with our employees, to know how to talk to their kids about sexual diversity. And this has been very, very powerful because of the storytelling that they have. So you can use, it is a symbiotic relationship. You can help them to spread the message, and also they can help you inside your company with your employees. Specifically, another initiative that we have with another powerful ally in Colombia is with the LGBT plus Chamber of Commerce. We are, as Beto said, we are focused on circular economy, on sustainability. So we do want to power up and support this startup or these entrepreneur companies that are targeting these difficult issues with our environment. So through them, we were able to offer some design thinking workshops specifically for LGBT startups and entrepreneurs that were tackling this issue. So it's really aligned with our corporate values and with our priorities, but we are also helping with some specific LGBT initiatives, and this is the power that we want to give to society. So we relate business, community, NGOs. It's always something that you can tangle and be powerful in your messages and your initiatives. Also, if you go to the next one, Beto, please. We have iQualis. iQualis is a really known NGO that is focused on gender in Latin America. But since they were our allies in Pride Connection since the beginning, they noticed that we didn't have any rankings or certifications in Colombia. With the power and the knowledge that they got, they started adding up some specific questions and some specific expectations that some companies that are already working in gender should be start working on LGBT inclusion. And they assist, iQualis always assists to the monthly meetings that they have in Pride Connection Colombia to understand how can they start a ranking also for the LGBT part of inclusion. So last year, it was the first ranking that they did specifically for LGBT inclusion. We won first prize. We were really, really proud of it. But it was a collaboration between many companies, and the fact that they were always involved since the beginning with Pride Connection, even though they were focused on gender, they had a lot of things to learn. And we lacked of rankings in Colombia. We needed someone an organization that was transparent and respectful in every single way. Sentido is another specific initiative that we had in Colombia. Juan Pablo, that you see there in the picture, is our sale in Colombia, and he's the contact for Pride Connection. So they developed, Sentido is an NGO that focuses on information to reduce prejudices and discrimination through journalism. So they wanted to tackle more what private sector was doing and spread the words of inclusive companies, open companies that were really keen on the diversity and inclusion part. So they started their YouTube channel, and they are inviting not only Dow, but all Pride Connection companies to start speaking a little bit more out loud and more message more spread into the community that they work with. So if you see, I only showed 4 specific initiatives, but it's really easy to find an initiative that can connect with any NGO, almost any NGO that you could partner with, and that that aligns with your corporate values. If you have an open mind, of course you will need support from your global partnership to be able to work with local NGOs. But this is a key part of how you can impact local communities when you have a big umbrella or a big global goal of impacting communities. Local NGOs are a huge part of making this impactful. So I invite you to understand and to know your local NGOs and to start partnering up with them, because beautiful things can come out there.
Super, totally aligned. That I have to say that one of the best learnings that we had is precisely this partnership that Tania is bringing to the conversation make totally the difference. And for us, this came very true when we started working with the Trans Community Apprentice Program. So I'm not going to go very deep on this because I know that everybody in the call knows this reality. We said that we have a real inclusion at workplace for the trans community, but what happens, we know that most of the trans community in Latin America has a lack of education. They don't have a second language because they could not access maybe even to a high school because of the transition process that they were living. So what we wanted to do, we had this dream of a company, in this case Dow, when we can provide a first work experience, we can provide them not only computer system knowledge, but also English preparation. We wanted to provide them a safe place when they can go, they can have a medical support. And we created this dream that we said, okay, how we're gonna launch it? So the first thing that we thought is, okay, it sounds good, but how we can engage it locally. So our amazing Brazilian team started linking, just like Tania said, with a local NGO to understand better how we can find these trans apprentices that we desperately wanted to have in our workforce. So we started a journey, and I don't want to go very into the detail in this journey. I just want to remark the things that we learned, and we have an amazing HR team in Brazil, led by Ciro Marquez. There is an amazing HR partner, Tiago Betti, that was one of the runners of this initiative. That first of all, they engage with the local NGO to understand where we can find the profiles of the trans men and trans women that wanted to find a workplace opportunity. Second, what we learned is that the process is not always as you imagine. Because, for example, as you can see, we launched our first hiring in 2017. Then in late 2017, they said, we cannot stay with you because we are having these issues. And then we have to restructure our program to have them back, having all our leadership acceptance, having a better training for our inside and outside. And then we have a current program that has more than 10 apprentices running. What is very important isn't that the past 3 years that we have been having these apprentices, now we have a lot of them going to workplaces as SAP, for example. We have our first hiring in 2017 from SAP. We were super happy about that. But then we also are having other companies that are taking our program and reproducing into their workplaces, as HP, Cargill, Accor, etc. So what is very important is that this is just an example about how you can create a first experience for trans people that maybe they are not going to be a salesperson, but they want to have a place in your office. So maybe you can create a space when you can teach them, you can give them language preparation, you can provide all of this. And what we learned in the process is that it was not only Brazil that was needing this. Of course, we launched a weight of this in Argentina. And Tani is working very hard to see how we can launch this, for example, in Mexico or even in Colombia. The challenge here, as Tania said, is that we have to understand better which are our potential NGOs and partners to find better and connect with the local trans community to understand and identify who want to join these kind of workplaces as ours. Then, Miguel, I know that you have a very nice community impact project as well. Do you want to share it with the folks?
More than happy to. Thank you, Beto. I know that you particularly like this one, so it's a pleasure to include it in the presentation too. So basically, we've been talking a lot, when it comes to, again, the UN standards of conduct. The fourth one, it's about the business engagement. The fifth one, it's about engaging with the NGOs and the community. And we've been making references to NGOs working in different areas like trans inclusion and so on, and many different projects like the example from Asia, from Latin America, etc. This particular project is something that we're very proud of because it started as a grassroots initiative in Argentina, I recall that it was, as one of the first countries, and then it became all over Latin America and Miami in the US too. It's the project that started being called Diversidad en las Calles, Diversidad en las Ruas, so in English, diversity in the streets, which was an initiative that we had in SAP to say, how is it that we can help trigger the conversation and give visibility to diversity in the different societies in which we operate, involving our employees and involving art as well. And this is exactly what we did in here. We engaged with 20 employees around Latin America and in the US, and we gathered their stories. As you see here in the top right-hand side, you see one person painted with the rainbow flag in the background and covering his face also with the paint, with the rainbow one. That's interesting, but the fact that yeah, thank you. So when it comes to the other representations, how we show LGBT inclusion, you see many pictures that we show also differently able people. We show different ages. We show people with different from different races and different ethnicities. That was the way that we wanted to bring diversity to the street, so that, you know, each story that you see here, it's inspired in one of the stories of our employees. These are murals that have been painted by Latin American artists, and they are in main Latin American cities like Bogota, Buenos Aires, Lima, Mexico City, Miami in the US, Rio and Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Santiago de Chile. You know, this was a very good initiative because we even have a website, which is diversityinthestreets.com, in which you can actually find information about all the paintings and so on, and what's the story behind. And we will love it's a way of representing diversity inclusion in society without making it necessarily a company branded activity. You know we can talk about how this is that we are the company that is behind it, but at the end it's a very generous activity inspired by our employees. So the sense of pride of those who get represented there, and they can see themselves like the story inspired on themselves in the murals, has been an amazing one. And this has been hugely successful when it comes to Latin America. It has had global visibility within the company in a very inspirational way. You know, so that's something that we're particularly proud of, that started in a Latin American country and then it got across the American continent. Mm-hmm. That could be better. Mm-hmm. I think the next one would be Tania with limitadores. Yes, exactly.
Yes. So this is a typical example of how we go from global to local, especially in our goals. We as GLAD have defined some specific global goals that we want to tackle, but it's really up to us, regional leaders and the sales, how we're going to land this and translate this into the most impactful way in our regions. So our global goal is really to become a BRG, a business resource group, and to have diversity and inclusion, and specifically for us, inclusion from LGBTQ+ in the workplace as an asset, that business recognize this as valuable. We want to increase our customer intimacy, and we as GLAD want to be involved in this customer intimacy that we are developing with the customers. So along with the Office of Inclusion, and you see there Patricia Lima, our inclusion leader in Latin America, she developed a wonderful plan, and it has Ilimitadores, it's the name, has become a brand, a real signature for us in Latin America, and is how we're going to translate this, this powerful message of diversity and inclusion, the importance of this to our stakeholders, to our valuable customers, and how can we collaborate with them in terms of learning from each other, or sharing experiences, or sharing what we have lived through these 20 years of GLAD. So what we developed was a specific program where suppliers, customers, distributors were invited to some specific sessions, some general sessions about diversity and inclusions, and also some specific session that tackle and through some specific methodologies had some initiatives on how could they start bringing up some programs, start conversation with their leadership teams, or build together some specific programs towards community. So this Ilimitadores in the Spanish speaker countries is called Rompiendo Barreras, it's called Breaking Barriers. It's been 2 years since we launched it. And like I said, specifically for Brazil, we have Ilimitadores, but we understand that we need to make these programs in local language with local messages that really impact regionally. So we developed specifically one for Mexico that was launched last year, with more than 30 companies participating there. We launched one in Colombia. Beto is going to talk to you about the Colombia edition that is wonderful. And in Argentina, by the end of the year, we have already launched the Rompiendo Barreras program. So this is the kind of things that we want to show you, because sometimes we have really high standards or high expectation in terms of global goals, and we do not understand how we can land them into regionally. This is a specific example. Just talk to your leaders, to the business people, and understand how can you make this happen locally.
And the next one is for me again. So in this case, I love that Tania was already talking with Limitadores and Rompiendo Barreras about business engagement and cooperating with customers and suppliers. By the way, I want to point out that also when it comes to global leadership in supplier diversity, how you take something which is started as very US specific globally, Dow is a leader in this space, you know, also including LGBTQ owned businesses as part of the supply chain. So congrats Dow on that one, because that's also considering again what type of impact you have in the supply chain. Customers and suppliers also play different roles, but they are very, very important. So the last point that we wanted to convey from the SAP side in the conversation here too is don't underestimate the impact that you're having the moment that you're engaging in pure business activities related to LGBT inclusion within the company. You know, Dow was now talking about the Limitadores project. Now in our case, the example that I wanted to bring to your attention is for us in SAP, Sapphire now is our largest customer event that we do yearly. You know, this year was obviously virtual given the situation that we're in. 2 years ago in 2018, it took place in Orlando, where normally it's hosted, with more than 21,000 people coming from our customers worldwide, so more than 100 countries represented in here. It was one time that we actually included a topic related to LGBT inclusion and business engagement and how is it that they could be relevant for our customers in SAP that use our software solutions, and also for our joint customers with Accenture that was co-presented with me. You know, from Accenture side, we had the luxury and honor to have the previous CIO of the company and also one of their executives and global private Accenture network sponsor. And we're talking about how you can actually use technology to drive a business beyond bias for the LGBT community. You might be thinking, how is this relevant? It's like, well, at the beginning, when we're talking about the second standard of the UN, it's the mandate that the HR would have. Look at the different steps of the employee life cycle and ensure that you're eradicating the possibilities for discrimination. So how is it that you can use technology, for example, to attract more talent in terms of the way that you present yourself? How is it that you can create panels when it comes to interviews to make sure that the bias that one person might have gets minimized and you focus much more on the skills? How is it that you look at the technology within the company to ensure equal treatment when it comes to promotion, when it comes to compensation, etc., etc. For this one, you need to have the projects in order to be implemented, and you need to have the solutions, you know, that are going to be able to help you run with it. So you start proving a huge impact within the company the moment that you can take the conversations about your own products in the company and you can take them to customer discussions, linking it with LGBT specific components. You know, that's another way that you can elevate the type of engagement that you're having with your company. So if you're looking at your company, the type of marketing events that you're organizing, how you're presenting yourself towards your customers, don't underestimate the influence that you can have when it comes to making sure that the LGBT inclusion is represented in that way, and that this is something that's going to be addressed. And I could say you are seeing here the growing and growing support of corporations when it comes to LGBT inclusion. We've been talking for you for this almost 1.5 hours, 90 minutes. In terms of the global relevance of this topic, we are talking about Asia, we are talking about Latin America, North America, Europe, etc. Don't fear that much the component about how will our customers take it. Actually, customers, companies like ours are embarking in the same type of way. And those who are not are probably going to be inspired by the type of activities that we're doing. You know, so in this case, the type of engagements that we're having in SAP, we're always very happy about the result of those. We never had any particular escalation when it comes to customer engagements. On the contrary, what we had was the opposite and people showing interest about how innovative this has been. So the recommendation here would be like for you to consider as well, how is it that you can help your company in the go-to-market besides, because at that time, you're ensuring that the LGBT community, LGBTQ community, keeps being included in the processes in all the relevant business areas.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Miguel. And just like you said, we have been talking about this journey, about how something started because we want to protect our employee, then how we celebrate the diversity, and we're ending with some very cool examples about not only how you celebrate it, but also you can create business using that. And the last example that we brought to your attention, and you are super invited to this event, as Tania was saying, is that Limitadores is growing as a concept in Latin America. And we're hosting these different intersectionality layers. And we're going to have one focused on LGBT community for Latin America in general. Sorry for the English speakers, but it's going to be in Spanish, so sorry about that. It's going to be on October 29th. You are more than welcome. It's a 100% free event. So you can join us. We're putting this event together with Accenture, with IBM, obviously SAP, where we have a lot of attendees from SAP because it's our partner as well. And we will invite you. You have the LinkedIn link there. Please be part of this. A lot of you were asking, why don't we have this in Ecuador, or why do we don't have this in this country? What we have been learning, as Tania said, from the Pride Connection thing, and generally at Dow, and I think Miguel and Mikey think the same by SAP, collaboration is key. You can have the learnings from other people and accelerate the launching of your ERG using what other people can tell you and inspire you. So I just want to end sharing with you our names again. You can find us on LinkedIn, you can contact us. I think that we always say that LGBT is a community, but I think that the most that we act as that and we help each other to launch these kind of programs, to understand better how we can collaborate, definitely we're going to have a not only good community, but also empowered. There are so much parts of our community that needs our support, as we're talking about maybe not so favored in education as the trans community. So we have the possibility as companies to change that. So please connect with us. And now we have 11 minutes to some Q&A. So this is a open session. So CB, correct me if I'm wrong. I guess that if somebody has a question, can unmute him, her, or themselves to ask a question. So if you want, you can ask us whatever you want.
Thanks, Beto. Yeah, if anyone has questions, just go ahead and put it in the chat box. With this session, you won't have the ability to unmute yourself, but if you put it in the chat box, our presenters can answer live right now because we still have 10 more minutes. So
I thank you, CB, sorry.
No worries, no worries. Let us know what you're thinking, everybody.
Paul is asking about the Spanish language event. It's going to be, let me go back so you can copy the link in case you want to join. Basically, it's an event of 1 hour and a half when we talk of leaders of diversity and inclusion. The October 29th is all about LGBT. So we're going to connect with NGOs. We're going to have people from government talking about that. So it's a great opportunity if you want to learn more about how we're living the diversity LGBT in Latin America. It's a great way to connect. We're going to have people from so many different companies. In the past event we have 2 weeks ago, we have more than 300 people from the different countries of Latin America. So you're totally invited. It's 100% free. You can subscribe in that link. We have a next question. There are many organizations similar to Authentical. Do they work together in a way, or is it scattered and you will have to reach out every one of them individually? Miguel, do you want to answer that?
Can you point that out again? Sorry, Beto.
There are so many organizations similar to Authentical. Do they work together in a way, or is it scattered and you will have to reach out to everyone them individually?
I see it here. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So to me, the main area that you can focus on is what type of scope is your organization having. If I look at Authentical is the one who's having the most global scope right now within the world, either because of the type of events that they organize in the US, that for us it's a reference, from SAP. We've been participating in Authentical for many years already, and we have people joining Authentical from all over the world to come and learn, from SAP, that every year we ensure that we have people not only from North America, but from all companies joining, because that's a very good way of mobilizing people to learn about LGBTQ inclusion, get empowered, get to see the community. That's a huge one. The other areas, you just need to see how is the local presence within the country. Authentical is doing a great job when it comes to, for example, health development activities in Latin America as well, partnering with Pride Connection. I see Authentical having a strong presence also in some Asian countries. However, when it comes to the actual implementation on site, you need to consider, do I want to go in there with the hand of Authentical or with other organizations like, for example, Workplace Pride, which is headquartered in the Netherlands, but they also do an amazing job when it comes to Africa, Eastern Europe, etc. Or is this something that I'm going to help and continue working with the local communities? In my opinion, the best way in order to engage with the local activities is right now, look for a local NGO. However, when it comes to learning, to the quality of the knowledge, when it comes to the conversation across borders and getting everybody together, that's when you need to look up for organizations like South and Equal in order to be able to engage. And the good thing is South and Equal is also going to be helping behind the scenes or more openly these organizations in many of the cases. If Out and Equal is behind in the corporation, it's going to be a trustworthy partner, I would say. Mm-hmm.
Super. Thank you so much. Cheryl asks us, is the event is for NGOs? Yes, it is also for NGOs. You are super invited. Excellent. Any other question you have? About the Asia Pacific, we have Mikey, Latin America.
Beto, there was a question about the allyship certification. I can comment on that. No, we did not use a third party. It's a program absolutely in-house. When we say certification, it's not like a checklist that you have to fill and then you're a good ally or a bad ally. It has some stages that we are showing allies how to get through the stages and become from ally to a champion or an advocate. But it is more like a personal journey. And you can showcase yourself whatever you want to be. If you want to showcase yourself as an advocate because you are doing certain things that are expected from an advocate, it's okay. We receive you, we embrace you as an advocate or as an ally, but it's absolutely in-house. We did use some educational resources that we have in Dow, virtual resources. I don't know if your company has it, because they're important that allies get educated on LGBTQ plus topics. But this was like the only big part that we have to go through and work with a third party in terms of educational, but it's really in-house.
Excellent. Thank you, Tanya. We have a question from Brian that I think is super interesting. They are looking, he's looking to open a ERG chapter, and it's in Poland. So I have to say that we just started, Brian, we can connect later if you want. We just started our ERG launch as Dow in Poland. And there's an organization there that, well, in Europe that is Out Leadership, that they are doing a nice Poland launch in with different companies. So I'm going to write down my email. If you can write me, I can connect with our Dow people there, and even with the external organization that is working in Poland. I'm sure that you can get a lot of support from them.
Also, commenting on that one, reinforcing the message for Brian. Remember that if you're working for a company that has got global policies and global commitment, that's a conversation that you should feel comfortable starting with your local HR counterparts. Besides who's going to be driving the network, employee resource group, network group in that country, consider that it's always an important point, like who's going to be on the driver's seat for this initiative. But HR should at least be able to have the conversation with you and to support the initiatives. You would just need to make sure that you take it in a journey in which you incorporate the local culture as well. But to give you another example, now for us within SAP this year, that right now in Europe, the major issues that we would have within European Union countries would be right now in terms of from a legislation perspective would be Poland and Hungary. When it comes to right at SAP Hungary, one of the colleagues from that chapter, the leader who joined Out and Equal last year, by the way, in the Washington Summit, this year led a session on transgender inclusion to bring awareness to the whole college, given the backwards legislation that Hungary has just passed, when it comes to the recognition of transgender people. So it's a journey to get into a level like this, but the moment you have mobilized organization, you're going to be able to address LGBTQ plus related inclusion topics, so good luck in that one, because it's worth it. Mm-hmm.
Excellent, Miguel. Thank you so much. I don't know if we're missing any other question. I'm not a very techie person, as you can see. I'm checking. At this point, I think we don't. Any other question you have? Super. So I really want to thank you, CB. We really appreciate all your support for the organization of the summit, and thank you so much for having us. I don't know, we have maybe 1 minute. Mikey, Miguel, Tania, do you want to do any close message to our nice attendees that were with us during this afternoon?
Nothing else from my side. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I hope you liked it. And thank
Yes.
you, Beto, for inviting us. Yes.
Just to
Thank you,
thank
Beto.
everyone for staying here 1 hour and a half with us. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you took some great takeaways from the session. And please feel free to contact us through LinkedIn or mail. This is about collaboration, like you said, Beto and Miguel. This is mere collaboration, so we're here to collaborate.
Very cool.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Exactly.
Have a nice
Bye-bye.
summit. See you in another session. Bye.
Exactly. Bye-bye.